Hello, hello. Welcome to the Play Chug podcast. My name is Josh, and I'm joined by my co-host Vince. How you doing, Vince?
I'm doing good today. Brisk day out in San Francisco. Gorgeous. Ready to rock and roll.
Rocking and rolling on to our first topic of the day. I know, Vince, you wanted to get something off your chest about Justin Turner. Some tasty news has dropped over the past week. What are your thoughts on that?
We get a notification from ESPN hearing that Manfred, no further discipline on Justin Turner. Josh, we talked about this, right? In the previous episode, there would be none, right? So once again, we're right. But if, just thinking about this now, taking about at least 24 hours and actually digesting this information. And I went back and actually read the manual, right? The 11 pages they sent out, particular based on COVID in the year of 2020 baseball season, right? So there's a list of different detail really around saying that players should keep, 6 feet away. Players are discouraged, from showering in the clubhouse, but it's not prohibited, right? Things of like inactive players have to sit 6 feet, between one another. Clubhouse food has to be individual. It's no longer a self-service buffet station, right? You get what I'm saying. There's a list of rules around
11
making
pages.
sure that people have masks and so forth, right? So despite all of the rules, despite all of those, now you have when the MLB is saying what Justin Turner did is completely okay, even though he's going against the rules, right? So if we look at one particular statement in this manual that says there's a strong warning around the careless actions of single individuals places the entire team and their families at risk. Absolutely. But the MLB will not formally restrict the activities of players and key staff members away from the facilities. Okay. So this was, if you will, inside of a stadium. Let's just think about this in the most layman's term analogy, which is let's just really settle this down and put a level set on this. Okay. Let's just think about this. What if Manfred was a parent, right? And then you have Justin Turner, let's say, being the child. So in this, analogy, let's talk about a parent speaking to their child, laying the ground rules of the house and state where what they want them to do, chores, how they don't want them sneaking out at night, right? Or maybe playing with a kid named Daryl Strawberry, right? Because we all know Daryl is not one you want your kids hanging out with, right? We know what he's up to. We know he's up to no good.
Mm-hmm.
So the main point is, right, we don't want you sneaking out at night. So let's just say one night, child sneaks out, right? They're hanging out with Daryl, okay? Doing something weird. We probably know what that is. It becomes 2 a.m., okay? The child decides to walk straight through the front door, okay? And then is met with, by the parent, right? And the parent looks at the child and goes, congratulations, you did it. That was a really nice job. Have a great rest of your night. And in fact, enjoy it in a party with everyone. This is fantastic. You know what they do? High five, go to bed. Next morning, no further punishment.
And make you breakfast.
Now, like you think about this, like how does Manfred allow this to happen? Just to literally say, hey, you know what? I'm going to put these rules out, but I'm not going to govern the rules, right? So, okay, so what do the rules mean? Manfred, you need to be fired.
Yeah.
Clear.
Honestly, does this guy not own or have a publicist? Hire a publicist? I mean, it's been years and years of, one strike after another. And I don't know if he realizes that he's the commissioner of baseball, because you're supposed to be struck out after 3 strikes, and this seems like it's either 9 or 10 on the list so far. I'm kind of appalled. I'm putting my cleats on just like I would have if I was Justin Turner. And in that mindset, I probably would have done the same thing, but it's not the point, I think. I mean, it is a little bit immoral that you go out and you don't have a mask on. You're taking pictures with your teammates. You're on the field with your family members, and you're putting other people at risk. I think Justin Turner in the moment probably assessed what the risk was to break the rules. Now, what I mean by that is, like, if I'm about to win the World Series and I'm faced with the decision to myself, should I go out and celebrate a World Series with my teammates and potentially risk, being suspended a few games next year, or potentially be, docketed, a fine? I think I take that risk. I think I make that. I think I make that risk assessment and still do what he did. Maybe that's what he did. I'm not coming down on Justin Turner. I think he should, get punished, and I think that he will gladly accept whatever punishment the commissioner deems worthy. The problem is, the problem is the commissioner will not do anything about it. He doesn't care. All he cares about is ratings, and unfortunately, his behavior is going to cost him those ratings.
Yep, you can't have the prisoners run the asylum, right? Although Justin Turner did it, this is a decision that should be made from the governing body, that being Manfred. You state the rules, you uphold the rules. That's how that goes. If you put it back on the onus of the player, well, then why is there management in sports, right? If that's Dodger management, if that's governing body being being Manfred, or even say from the Players Association. But I don't expect this to come from the Players Association. I expect this to come from Manfred, and even the Dodgers personnel allowed this to happen. So this has to come from Manfred, and he failed in every facet of what you could here. So it's just, I don't understand it. I don't think we will, and you won't see any further action from this.
Yeah. Manfred earns our Play Chug podcast trash can of the week. Week. Month. Fuck it. month. All right. Well, I mean, that brings us to another topic where I want to talk about how the COVID is generally affecting sports, particularly the NFL. As we watch football games, these it's so awkward seeing all these stands, not filled up. And even when they're allowed to, when fans are allowed into the stadiums, they're not allowed like at the edge of the stadium. So you have, it's just this awkward dynamic. So Bill Belichick summed it up last week in an interview. He said, "Do these empty stadiums remind you of anything?" He said, "Practice. This is an accurate comparison. Part of the joy you have as a player is soaked up in the spite of vitriol directed at us from the opposition, yelling, cursing, throwing things at us. These are the moments you help you understand the importance of the moment. And if these people care this much about winning, then you want to crush their dreams. You want to make them cry." This is Bill Belichick speaking. So according to Forbes, the empty stadiums, they're going to cost the NFL teams about $5.5 billion, or an average about $102 million per team. A team like the Eagles, whose home games are always sold out, will lose much more than that. I mean, those figures include the loss of revenue from concessions and parking, as well as ticket sales. Vince, it'll be interesting how everything is handled going forward. But what are your takes on how all of this is affecting NFL?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? You have some stadiums who are allowing the 25% capacity, majority with not allowing any fans at all. Then you see kind of, more recently, right, when we're talking about COVID in general, U.S. is having the most spikes per day, over, say, the last, 2 weeks that we've ever had, right? So
more testing.
If this isn't, say, the second wave, this maybe is the third, however you define it, the wave is on its way, or it's here. So I think there's a couple things around that, right? When we talk about the COVID piece, right? Should the stadium stay empty? Probably so. Should 25% capacity stay? Probably not. But, right, that's up to those individuals, franchises to understand. I think the really interesting aspect of this, right, is kind of what you mentioned in the top of that bit, is really around how the players are playing and how the games are being played without this, energy or crowd noise, right, from the fan base. I think that's the most interesting part of all of this, because really you think about players, and I played football, I played rugby, so I understand kind of the atmosphere approach of it. And really when you're dead tired, say in the fourth quarter, but you got to put that extra in, the fan base is critical to that, right? Not only from the standpoint of your own energy, but as well when, say, if you play on defense, right, you want the other opposing offense to not be able to get signals in, right? Not be able to communicate with one another. So that's a huge piece that we look at as well, to ensure, that we hear all these fans, we want them back, but they're not there. So I think you see players doing more celebrations, which obviously the NFL has brought back, which is very important to the game, but the energy is lost, right? Yeah. And I think you could see that as well, maybe somewhat in the ratings too,
Yeah.
is that without the fan base, it doesn't have that type of atmosphere, even from a TV perspective, that we expect.
Yeah, and it's going from it's affecting all aspects of the game, from on the field to off the field too. This year's salary cap is 198.2 million per team, but the salary cap is tied to league revenue, and the pandemic is likely to sap the league's revenue in 2020. Canceled preseason games, games played in empty stadiums. The NFL is projecting revenue loss that will cause the 2021 cap to drop. The NFL and the NFL Players Association agreed to set a floor of $175 million per team for next year's cap, meaning can't go below that. But teams are budgeting for that number, which is a nearly 12% drop from this season. And budgeting isn't easy. Well, one thing that makes it easier is that teams are allowed to roll over the salary cap space from one year to the next. This year more than ever, that rollover space is precious, and teams are protecting it. Where in the past we might not see teams. In the past we might have seen a go for it team make a high player profile salary trade at the deadline, and that's a lot less likely to happen this year.
It's funny too. So like you state, right, all this is decreasing. The one team I feel like isn't following any, say, COVID financial restriction, the Kansas City Chiefs. Look at all the money they just shelled out, over the course of the offseason, right? From Chris Jones' big contract, obviously the most notable, Patrick Mahomes, right? Highest paid quarterback, highest played.
Congrats to him, yeah.
Highest played player, not just NFL, sports player of all time, right? So I guess, right, the Chiefs got the inside book or been saving for amount of years to do this. But you think about the small teams, right? The teams that don't, say, get a lot of the TV revenue, smaller fan bases may not put as much or have as many people coming in, right? Those are the teams you really got to look at, right?
Yeah.
It's not, say, something like the Patriots or the Chiefs or the 49ers. It's really the teams that we're looking at in the smaller areas, right? Maybe the Detroit Lions, maybe the Jacksonville Jaguars, right? Those are two types of teams that you look at and say, this is critical, right? This is definitely going to change their books. It's going to make it so that they're restricted in the way of who they sign and who they can extend, right? So certainly those two teams will feel the most.
All right, well, let's talk TV ratings, all right? So in terms of all sports, the 2020 Stanley Cup averaged 953,000 viewers across NBC's TV and digital programs. That's a 38% decrease compared to last year. The final round of golf, U.S. Open, averaged 2.0 rating and a 3.21 million viewer for NBC, the lowest rated and least watched final round of the tournament ever, down 55% from last year. Let's see. The Preakness on NBC was down 56% in viewership from 2019. Even when there's good news, there's bad news. Last Saturday's Tennessee-Georgia game on CBS averaged a 3.1 rating and a 5.77 million viewers, making it the highest rated and most watched game of the season. However, the ratings were still down 21% lower than the Week 6 game on CBS in 2019. According to the deadline, overall ratings were down a whopping 16.1% from last season Thursday night football opener between the Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers. According to the note, this could end up being a 10-year low for the NFL on NBC. Now, what is the impact of it? What does this mean? I mean, what is causing all this? We can only speculate. I mean, personally, if I had to attribute what it is, I think it's the marriage of political messaging across all sports. Now, what is the impact of things like protesting the national anthem? We don't really know. However, it will be curious, and I want to emphasize this point. It will be very curious what happens once this election is over, and it'll be curious to see what the commissioners of the NFL, what Roger Goodell will do, what the leadership of the NBA will do once the election is over. We don't have to drive the message home of who to vote for, come the presidential election. It'll be very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you talk about like football ratings down, I think there's a twofold to it. I think one thing that's pretty interesting is you look at, say, just most recently, like the Thursday night football game against the Green Bay Packers and the San Francisco 49ers, complete blowout, probably has 0 watchability rating, at least from, the second quarter onward, right? Even with that being said, they were able to actually, within, working against, say, the election piece and as well the Bachelorette, have, say, decreased ratings, but still hold up pretty decently. The big portion, and I agree with you, right? There's politics that are coming into each of these sports, and I think that's driving down, across, the United States, right? If you look at it, very tight race this year between Biden and Trump, right? So there's certainly a lot of individuals who are watching these sports who don't want politics involved in sports. And I think we covered this previously, right? Sports are a way for everyone to get away from the politics and so forth. Now
Yeah.
now it's being injected back into the sports and causing, a lot of people to be turned off by that. One thing I thought was very interesting that happened about a week ago, Don Terry Poe, okay, he played for the Dallas Cowboys. He obviously wasn't playing well. I think the Cowboys defense has been ridiculed and pointed at as one of the worst defenses in the NFL, and deservedly so. But what was interesting is the comments that were made by Jerry Jones and why he actually fired him. Okay, so one, it wasn't only his play; it was his weight. But there was a third one that I think people didn't see, and I think it's very clear to what's happening here. Right, the third one was the fact that he kneeled on the sideline during the national anthem. So you have it from the standpoint of the owners, right? Let's just get the cat out of the bag here, right? The NFL is arguably, when we're talking about the owner base, one of the more racist leagues in all of sports. Okay, let's just talk about it. You have Jerry Richardson, who was on the Panthers' previous owner. There was a racist email that came out. You have Dan Snyder doing sexism and racist issues all throughout the organization.
Wow.
You have Jerry Jones coming out vocally in an email, in a thread, or so forth, a statement, talking about 3 reasons, the third being the kneel down on the field. So this is,
Wow,
from the owner's standpoint, right, this is not going to happen. Politics won't be brought in, but it needs to be brought up, right? The NFL, out of all sports, is the most racist by far, and really makes it be known. And even further, just look how the players are treated. The first contract means nothing. There's no guarantees. It's very minimum at most. They have to work for the second contract. The second contract doesn't come till year 4 or 5, and the average lifespan of a football player is 3 years.
yeah.
I mean,
Wow. If you're an owner, you like those numbers. You like those numbers.
Favorable.
Yeah. It's all a mess. I think that what you're going to see eventually is a counterculture resurgence. I think there's going to be sports teams or new sports leagues or new sports brands that come out of the woodworks that people are just going to move forward in favor of. And I think it's just the impetus is on you and me, Vince, to start our own NFL league, I think
it's been tried. I think The Rock bought the AFL. So I think that's being tried. Hopefully The Rock can pull out, his character from The Ballers and actually make it happen. But
yeah, let's hope so.
We'll see. I'd love to see another, type of league like that actually puts players first, because it's just so apparent. And if you can't read between the lines, then I just helped you read it. So
yeah. Well, let's move back to football. I think the 2020 NFL trade deadline didn't produce, because of all this, the kind of action we expected, with very few teams showing a willingness to pay the price required to acquire those top players. Several trades are made, though, and they have the potential to really help these contending teams over the second half. Which of the teams made the right moves? Which team do you think failed to address their weaknesses?
Yeah, so there weren't many moves made at all. Really, the only big move in my eyes was Quan Alexander to the Saints for Kiko Alonso and a 5th rounder, right? And that's purely a cap-saving move that saves the Niners $8.2 million, next year, right? So that's a cap or this year, but allows them to roll that over into next year. So that's really the only big move, talking about it. I think the loser of this, and maybe I'm wrong because they just annihilated the Niners, especially through the air, but Devontae Adams is something else. I think the Packers should have gone out and got Will Fuller from the Houston Texans. I understand it would have taken a second, but you just spent your first rounder on Jordan Love when you have Aaron Rodgers, who could play for the next 5 years. The least you could do is go out and get a number 2, which then would allow safety coverage to roll back over and not be all on Devontae Adams, who's getting double cover all the time. And if you're not double covering him, what are you doing? And certainly Will Ferrell would be there on the opposite side, taking safety coverage away, if not splitting that safety coverage between the two. So then you have a 2-pointed attack through the air, and you already have Aaron Jones on the ground. I think they're the biggest loser by far. And I think one team, that should have made more moves, and maybe, this is more of a Monday quarterback thing here, but is the San Francisco 49ers. You're plagued with injuries. You're losing everything from that standpoint. Trent Williams should have been on the block and should have been traded. He's a free agent after this. And you could have easily got a huge haul back, looked then towards, say, signing some of the top tier free agent left tackles in free agency, or even bringing Williams back because you have the Shanahan, Trent Williams connections way back from the Washington Redskins days. Those are two franchises. I just have no idea what you're doing. I love the Quan Alexander move. It opens it up for Greenlaw to play linebacker. He's playing better. He's younger. He's a less cap hit, frees up money. Understand that. But Trent Williams not going, Will Fuller not being traded for, and what are you going to get in the second round, Green Bay? What have you drafted in the second round? It's just unbelievable. Go draft another quarterback, and we'll see you next year.
I want to add one of the winners of the trade deadline was veteran linebacker Avery Wilson. He went from the only winless team, the New York Jets, to the lone unbeaten team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, the switch alone makes Williams one of the biggest winners of the trade deadline. The Steelers have a good chance to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl, and the acquisition of Williams gives Mike Tomlin's defense a much needed depth at linebacker.
Levy, that's a great one. So I'm glad you brought that up, and it just came up to my mind. I don't know if you saw his Instagram. This was hilarious, right? And hopefully we'll display this picture as we go through this. But this is so. Avery was basically on the side of the New York streets in full uniform, except cleats, okay, with a hitchhiking thumb up, waiting to be picked up by the Steelers. If that doesn't tell you how bad he wants out from the Jets, not only that, but away from Gase, that tells you everything. And as of this morning, and obviously we're recording this on Saturday morning, it's about 9:32. I don't expect you to have your second cup of coffee. I'm on my third. I don't know if you can tell. But I would tell you by that is that if you look at the article that just came out, okay, it was around surveillance, right? So let's just take a step back. The locker room for football players is the only area, right, where they can actually have one area, no cameras unless the allotted time right after games come in, so forth. And certainly I know the NBA does that. And I think now it's even moved out to, it has to be the press conference, right? They meet you outside. So the locker room is the only area where there can be no surveillance. What do the Jets do? They put a camera in the locker room. I mean, this is Gase. This is Gase all over. It's the mass control. It's the mass understanding. It's the paranoia of the prisoners taking over the asylum when Gase has no control. They have no belief in him. And the fact that the Jets and management had to have known of this, and certainly their CEO had to have known of this. I mean, if this doesn't get him out the door from a fireball offense, then literally this guy is like cockroaches in a nuclear bomb. Right.
Yeah, it seems like there's problems up and down that organization. Well, they are hard to watch, but let's talk about who is the game to watch this coming week. I think our Eat Play Chug podcast game of the week will be Monday Night Football, the Saints versus the Bucks. This is a head-to-head matchup against two juggernauts, two of the all-time greatest. Brady, a six-time Super Bowl champion, has led the Tampa Bay Bucks to 6-2 record. Drew Brees, he's obviously going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. He's led to the Saints to 4 straight victories. From a statistical standpoint, Vince, this is the greatest matchup of all time. Brees ranks first in the NFL in passing yards at 79,314 and in passing touchdowns at 560. Yeah. Brady ranks second in yards at 76,000. It's only 3,000, underneath a Breeze, and 559 touchdowns. So one touchdown pass separates the two. It's insane. So it's going to be a really exciting. I mean, even if you're not a full-time NFL watcher, I think this generates some pretty good watchability buzz. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we're going to get the back and forth, right? You just mentioned it, the total touchdowns in career. We're going to have that seesaw of back and forth, flipping back and forth. It'll be well documented. I think the big thing here, there's a couple things, right? So you have the Saints in week 1 beating Tampa Bay 34-23, right? And so that was at that time in New Orleans, right? So now they're going out to the Buccaneers right? They're getting Michael Thomas back, who actually had a high ankle sprain in that game of the fourth quarter. They're getting him back now. You have Kamara, who's a little hobbled, but is on pace to lead running backs and receptions all time for a season. And then you got Breeze, yeah, a little shoulder impingement, but certainly going to play. On the opposite side, okay, Tampa Bay Bucs side, you're getting Chris Godwin back with the finger. He'll be back in. You have Tom Brady throwing unbelievably this year. You have Evans, who's playing very well. Ronald Jones, Fournette out of the backfield. And then you get our four loco of the week, Antonio Brown, coming in here. Who knows what he'll do, but if he's under the TB12 diet and household, I think it'll be okay. This is round 2 of that, right? We remember when he played week 1 with the New England Patriots against the Miami Dolphins, came out with a touchdown in that, looked very good. Certainly, I hope he has been living within the Tom Brady compound out there and at least digesting some of how to be a normal human being. And if so, then certainly this is going to be one of the biggest matchup in my estimation or opinion of this is going to be the back and forth. Yes, good defenses, but I still think in this league, right, offense will beat defense from a standpoint of when you have someone like Brady or Breeze throwing. So really excited about this. I guess the last point I'll make, right, which is why this is such a big game, okay? When we talk about the NFC South, it really is going to come down to one game. As you mentioned in the top of this bit, right, you have one team being 6-2, being Tampa Bay Bucs. You have one team being 5-2, being the Saints. Saints won the first one, right? So what would this be if the Saints won it? It would be the ultimate tiebreaker if they came down at the end with the same record. So this game is for the division. Let's just be clear once again. This game is for the division.
You heard it here first. Play chug beer. Fuck. You heard it here first. Yeah, man. I mean, and for us older geezers, I'm not the 21 spry chicken that I used to be. I mean, Brady is 43 years old and Drew Brees is 41. They made history on September 13th when they met and they faced off against each other in week 1. And that was the oldest quarterback matchup in NFL regular season history since the 1970 merger. Now they're going to break that record in week 9. So it's going to be fun, and it's going to provide a sense of like rejuvenal energy to us 31 to 30. I don't know, how old are you, man?
Oh yeah, well 30, and I will say this: there's only one person probably in the history of this quarantine that hasn't gained weight, and that's Tom Brady, right? TB12 diet. I should have been on it. I think I put on, what are they calling it? The quarantine 20. Well, whatever that is, I probably went over it. So Tom Brady eating his avocado ice cream and staying on the vegan diet. Good for him.
I call it the quarantine 20-ounce bottle of wine.
Yeah, times 2.
Yeah, double fisting. The watchability rating on this game, I give this a 3 out of 6 pack of beers. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, this is 100. I mean, this is, whatever you're doing during that time, you shouldn't be doing it, because this is primetime TV, Sunday night, 5:20. If you need to get out a frozen freezer meal, whatever you need to do, a hungry man, whatever you wish, get it done. Order your food in. But at 5:20, get your butt on the seat, turn it on, don't leave. This is going to be
well. We gotta
wants to see.
We gotta weight our ranking system in terms of playoffs, Super Bowl, big historic games. I think for regular season games, this is 100 out of 100, right?
Yeah, regular season, of course.
I'm talking about like if you're a casual sports watcher, how many beers are you going to drink out of a 6-pack while watching this game?
Oh, this is if we're God, I mean if we're doing IPAs, it's probably 3, but I think for a lot of people understand that's a lot, right? But if this is a let's just say a White Claw or Bud Light game, yeah, it's a 6-pack, right? Maybe the girlfriend wants to bring out a bottle of wine and we go that route and we have 2. But this is where you can sit down, make your charcuterie board, maybe, throw Bachelorette on the left side that's been DVR'd, or, the Kardashians, and have your monitor on the NFL and spend some quality time with your girlfriend or fiance or wife, however it may be.
By the way, but historic Bachelorette season. I'm not going to give any spoilers away in case you didn't watch it, but
yeah, no, you know what? This is the problem with myself. I read all the tabloids when I'm in the Safeway checkout aisles. I watch everything. So I know exactly what's going on. And, not to say I did take the under pre But I did have some intelligence on that. But yeah, I'm not
Ah,
shocked. Not shocked.
blame Nicole for that one. Well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna challenge. I'm gonna challenge our listeners. If you guys are looking for something to eat while watching the game, we'll get to what to drink in a bit. But I think for a high-scoring offensive matchup, I think the perfect food to eat would be some chicken wings. So you can get really good chicken wings at Hot Sauce and Panko to go. Chicken wings for every completed pass by Brady and Breeze. I challenge you to down a Jamaican dry rub jerk wing or delicious yaki teriyaki wing from Hot Sauce and Panko. Make sure you order a family size portion of 50 wings for $20. That comes in under 40 cents per wing, and you're going to want the refreshing taste at a great price with two of the highest percentage passers in NFL history going head to head against one another. Remember, that's Hot Sauce and Panko to go. If it's chicken wings, it's Hot Sauce and Panko. Food like we give a damn.
And I think you're exactly right. This is the chicken wing game because now you can get your fingers as messy as you want because you don't have to touch that remote.
So our beer of the week segment, Vince, what beer do you recommend our listeners to drink while watching this
Yeah.
game?
So let's look at, just for me and to give everyone a little bit of perspective, right? So I'm out here in San Francisco, a lot of great craft breweries within California. I tend to go to Sacramento. They have it once a year. They have the Craft Brew Festival. It's about 250, 270 total craft brew beers coming and so forth. So they have the ability, right, to show those off. You get a little shot glass, if you will. You go test them, right? You're in 95-degree heat. By the end of it, you're on your butt, right? Great time, though. And so my top three, right, when we're talking, not really in any order, just so you have some perspective of kind of where my palate is when it comes to beer. My favorite, and probably number one, but let's not put these in order, is Alvarado Brewery out of Monterey. Fantastic beer, unbelievable food when you go to it in a beautiful setting with a nice backyard. Great IPAs. Fantastic beer. Can't recommend it enough. Number two, let's talk about Fieldwork. So Fieldwork is out here. They're in Berkeley. They have places down now in Monterey as well as San Mateo. Great IPAs. I would tell you, go with the hazy IPAs when you go there. Fantastic. They got a lot. And the double IPAs.
Love me hazy.
If you have a double IPA, just expect to go to bed in the next 30 minutes. And last but not least would be Moonraker. Okay. One that a lot of people haven't heard of. And if you drink beer and you drink craft brew, this is one you may have. This is in Auburn, California. Fantastic. They have like one of those old Texas style steel overhangs, right? So if you ever seen the new Arlington Stadium with that like barbecue oven top, that's what they have as well. And it's fantastic. Hazy IPAs, great IPAs, other, Kolsch, ciders, just a fantastic atmosphere, food trucks. Love it. But for today, right, we are going to be showing off the Altamont Beer Woodstock West. This is a fantastic beer, a great pale ale. Love peace, music, and beer. Can't recommend this one enough. Out of Livermore, California. And you know what? Let's be honest. This was a label buy. As our women go and buy all the nice wine
It is a pretty one.
beautiful labels. They got me to buy the beautiful label. I'm that beer guy. So let's crack this open and see how it goes against that. And certainly what we like to say too, please give us some feedback on your favorite beers, right? If you can, when we post this up on YouTube, send us back your favorite beers. I'd love to try them, love to hear about them. And certainly maybe we have a beer on next episode together. So let's give this a pour.
This guy likes beer, everybody.
So nice frothy head.
So just to recap, just give the people the cliff notes here. You said there's 3 beers that you recommend?
3 breweries I recommend. So
what were they?
Alvarado.
That's not a good pour.
It's sorry, it's 9:40 a.m. I don't think my muscle memory is ready to pour a beer at this time.
You should be 2 beers in at least by now.
Oh yeah. So I would say Fieldwork, Alvarado Brewery, and Moonraker.
All right.
So look at this beautiful pale ale. Let's just get the color going here.
That's good color.
That's a beautiful pale ale. Oh, that is delicious. That is simple. That is great. This is, to me, when people say, I want to go, like, hard days work out in the yard, right? Sweating, you're gardening. Your wife says, I want a sprinkler system in the lawn. You got to go out there, hands and knees coming, dirty, sweating face. It's hot out. You're in like, damn, I'm dehydrated. I need water. No. That's when you usually go and you grab that Bud Light or that Coors Light, and it's just like, bam, like the crisp. Oh, that hydrated you. This is the beer, not the Bud Light or Coors Light. This is the beer, right? The Altamont Beer Works, Woodstock West. This is what you need after that hard day.
Thanks, Vince. And thanks to all of our listeners for making it through our entire podcast. We will see you guys next week.